Welcome to the Dental Business Journal Verbal Skills Edition. This is a weekly e-journal brought directly to your inbox. To subscribe, visit dentalbusinessjournal.org. In today's issue, we're going to explore the topic, are you interested in your patients? You can also listen to us as a podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast tool. And if you like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dental Business Journal. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block, for today's edition, and let's dive in with my guest, Narun Arulraja. Narun, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Eric. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I wanted to jump right in and ask you, we care about people who care about us.
Absolutely. Today's topic is, are you interested in your patients? Even though our edition is on verbal skills, we are going to explore this idea that if you're genuinely interested in people, they're going to be interested in you. So are you interested in your patients? So that's really the question of the day. And you're right. We care about people who care about us. So think about it like this. You're talking to someone, you meet them at a party, right? Let's say you go to a friend's house and you run into some person, and that person is all about me, and I'm smart, and I did this and I did that, and so forth. Then you meet somebody else, and that person is asking you questions, asking you what you're interested in, being a good listener. Who are you going to like? The one who's me, and bragging and self-promoting, or the ones who's interested in you? Right? We're all going to like the one who's interested in us. None of us like the one who's all about, himself or herself. So really, I think the question is, how do you care about someone? How do you show them that you care about them? A great place to start is ask their name and use their name, because the name is like the most important word in the English language for any of us. It's what we heard when we were born, and that's what everyone calls us by. So just using our name, like, hey, John, so nice you called us. Really appreciate you. Things like that, like, using their name. That's a really, really good way to, start the conversation, whether it's on the phone for the very first time with the patient, or whether they are like in front of you, whether they are a brand new patient or an existing patient. The second tip I would leave you with is, being intentional. Many practices don't do a morning huddle, unfortunately, but if you are doing a morning huddle, then I think it's really important for you to think through how you're going to, use that morning huddle to, create that, caring. Because imagine if you knew a little bit about the patient you're going to see that day. Imagine that they have a son at university, and you ask about how their son is doing. Or imagine they just, that they had a wedding recently and they went to that wedding, or they went on a vacation, and you ask about how their vacation was. They're going to really like you because they know you care about them as a human being. I know you have probably 1,000 patients, if not more. So I'm not asking you to remember every patient all the time. I'm just asking you to just go through your notes at the beginning of the day, just to get ready, so you know who you're going to see that day, and you know a thing or two about each person. So that conversation becomes very personal. Like Dr. Robert Cialdini said, we like those who care about us.
That is, it is so true. When you say a patient's name, it's so important. If you just say they need a crown, or this patient needs a crown, or let's get them scheduled, it's so much better if you say my friend John here needs a crown. If you say their name, it's so much more personal, as well as like you mentioned, writing down some notes about a conversation you had, something interesting in their life. Whether they just had a baby or their kid plays soccer. I write it down on the top of my notes during that procedure, so it's there for the next time, so I can easily find it the next visit, and I'll say, hey, how was your kid's soccer game? Last time I saw you, they were in the playoffs, and they're like wowed, and they think I'm some genius for remembering this. Meanwhile, I had it written in the notes, but it really just shows that you care when you bring up something personal that you last chatted about. Here's another situation there, and a lot of times in the hygiene exam, and this happens very often, I'll present the treatment. I feel like I'll make a great connection with that patient, but then I leave the room. and the patient will turn and ask the hygienist something like, do I really need that? What is the psychology behind that? Why is that? And how do I create a team that knows what to say and when to say it?
That's a great question. I think a lot of patients look at the doctor as someone who is like one status above them, socioeconomically, intellectually, etc. On the other hand, many patients relate to the team members more so than they relate to the doctors because they feel like the team member is just like them. Perhaps, they have young families, perhaps they both are working mothers, or perhaps they both are in their 30s, right? So they find something in common with your team member more so than they find something in common with you. Why is that important? We listen to people who are similar to us because we feel people who are similar to us can understand us, can relate to us more. So if that person who is, working really hard, taking care of a family, you tell us something, he or she is, listens to you as an expert because you are the doctor, but she wants to get a second opinion. She will ask that assistant, hey, do I really need this? And what that assistant says and the way they say it will determine whether they're going to accept treatment or not. So making sure your team is on board, making sure everyone is aligned, making sure they know what to say, how to say it. Of course, they have to be genuine. They can't just say something they don't believe in. But if they really believe that that's good for the patient, they should articulate that. Jenny, I'm glad you asked this question. If I were in your shoes, I would definitely get this done, and this is why. And I do believe, in Dr. Eric, he's not going to recommend anything that he really doesn't believe is important to you, something like that. So that reinforcement will push them over the edge, will get them accepting treatment. If that handover is not done properly, or if that reinforcement is not happening, then you might miss a golden opportunity to get that patient to accept treatment.
Another great way for reinforcement is if you've done a similar treatment on one of your staff members, and you have them come in and tell the patient, oh, he did a crown on me, and it was nothing to worry about. It was a great experience, or he helped my spouse with clear aligners. That is such a great way to reinforce. And this goes on to my next question, where taking care of the team or their families, because caring doesn't just stop with the patients, especially now in this day and age. You really need to extend this to your team members. Any suggestions for this, Naren?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll have two suggestions. One is have one-on-one lunches, or any way to kind of talk to your team member, like for 15, 30 minutes. And the reason I like one-on-one is that way it's more casual and more like open-ended, as opposed to with a group. And some people who are always going to speak are going to speak, and the ones who are shy are not going to speak. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about personal things in a group setting. So I would strongly recommend, now more so than ever, like schedule your one-on-ones in your calendar. So, you can take somebody out to lunch, maybe like every month you pick one of your team members and take them out to lunch. Just sit and listen to them, let them talk. Understand where they're coming from, listen to their suggestions. I'm sure they will have tons of ideas that'll actually help your practice. We all want to feel important. So you giving that ear, so to speak, that listening really makes them feel important. Second suggestion I have is autonomy. And I'm a big fan of the book Drive. We'll put a link to it, by Daniel Pink. He studied knowledge workers. Everyone in a dental office is a knowledge worker. And he noticed there are three things that motivate knowledge workers. One is autonomy, the other one is purpose, and the third is mastery. Autonomy means, give me freedom, like tell me like my boundaries, but give me freedom so I can do it my way. Mastery means help me continue to grow, because we as human beings, we like to grow. We like to, do better, learn more, be smarter, be more effective. It's just in us. And last but not least, purpose. Purpose as in like what we are doing, if it's just about the paycheck, it may not motivate them. But if it's about changing lives, then they are looking forward to coming that morning, waking up and, letting their kid at the daycare and coming and working here. So focus on autonomy, like give them freedom, give them the boundaries, but let them, innovate, let them share their thoughts. Of course, you have to make sure whatever they're suggesting, you're okay with, but give them a little bit of autonomy just within their area, but be very clear on what your expectations are.
Yeah, I think that is such a great point about the whether it's a lunch meeting. We actually do one-on-ones now, and I wish we had done it a lot earlier. And we actually only do about 15, 20 minutes. It's pretty quick, but it's a way to sit down with that employee. And everyone craves feedback. People love feedback. So it's a chance for us to give our feedback and for them to give their feedback. We make it very clear this is not about employment or raises or wage. This is just about how's everything going. And it really shows that you appreciate them. And now more than ever, you need to show appreciation for your staff because you want a great culture and you want your staff to be happy, so they stay. And maybe they'll refer their friends and colleagues to come and work for you as well. You mentioned the book Drive. Are there any other resources or any other books that you recommend, Aaron?
Absolutely. The Bible, when it comes to relationships, influence, getting people to, listen to you, i.e., believe that you care about them, is the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It was written almost 100 years ago. It's a classic. It's an easy read. I would strongly suggest that to every single practice owner, and even dentist who's not a practice owner, because it would really change your life. Read that book, listen to it on Audible. That's my first recommendation. And of course, if you want new patients, we'll also put a link to the marketing strategy meeting. It's dentalbusinessjournal.org/MSM. That's if you're trying to get new patients in addition to like working with your existing patients.
Yeah, How to Win Friends and Influence People is such a classic. I read it last year, and it really it stands the test of time. Naren, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you love what we do here, dentalbusinessjournal.org, tell your friends, share a review on iTunes or YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe. Until we meet again, I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block.